All right, this is episode 13 of the Oil Hour, otherwise known as the playoff preview, round one. Joining me is Norman Nobody's manager, Matthew Leal. Leal, how you doing, bud?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, you're doing better than me. As you know, you and Finch are proud owners of a first-round bye in the NFC playoffs, but it wasn't a sure thing. We knew that you had to win your rivalry week matchup with Morgan, your arch nemesis, and it was looking a little hairy late.
Yeah, it was a little nerve ending when it came down to the end of Sunday night, not knowing what his guy on Monday would do.
Yeah, for a bit there, I was thinking you were actually going to go down, and then Bruce would get that other bye. But it all worked out like it should have. And I mean, as the projections go, there weren't really any upsets, but still, it was rivalry week, and that's always fun. For me, gave me one last thing to play for, but I score 170 points. Doesn't really make a difference. I mean, I get to rub it into Duffy, but he's had such a bad year that I'd feel bad talking trash about it. Like, as bad of a year as I've had, his is even worse. So I'm going to let that one cool down a little bit before I talk any trash.
Yeah.
Rogers was a heavy favorite going up against Jessen, and that bore out exactly like we thought it would. Pyle was a heavy favorite against Schmidt, so lucky enough. I mean, that was actually a big game. Pyle had a lot more points over the course of the season, but going into that, they were both 7-5. Whoever won that was in the playoffs. It was that simple. But Pyle just obliterated Schmidt. That's like the original rivalry in the oil. So I know he's happy.
Yeah, and like I said on the trash talk, hopefully he blew his load on that game, and we won't see any more of those monster wins, because I think he won by 80. I think it says here 83.6 points.
Wow. Yeah, and then we just briefly discussed your matchup with Morgan, and this was, you were 9-3 going up against the 2-10 Whackers. Should have blown them out of the water by looking at the records, but it was a little scary for you. But in the end, you pulled it out. Man, Morgan had a bad year also. 2-11, last place. Just a really bad year for a team that Yahoo predicted to go 10-3.
Yeah.
The Narcs, they were a heavy favorite against the Hippies. The Narcs were going to be in the playoffs either way. Trevillo and the Hippies, if they had won this, they would have made it. And for a bit there, I really thought the Hippies were going to upset them. And I forget the order of which guys played, but I think it was maybe Rogers had played, and then maybe Brandon Marshall and D'Angelo Williams. No, because that was a night game. Maybe it was Sean Drawn. There was a time where the Hippies were significantly ahead of the Narcs and projected to finish that way. But then Cam Newton scores just shy of 50 points, and Devontae Freeman and Mark Ingram. Well, hell, between Ingram, Freeman, and Johnson, he averaged 20 points apiece from his running backs. So,
yeah,
he ended up making it look like a blowout, but it was really looking like it would go the other way for a while. So that's probably the least passionate of our rivalries, simply because those two really don't know each other, and we've talked about that in the past. But when you set the schedule up, you always gotta, it's not always perfect.
Yeah.
Finch, this was one that surprised me. It wasn't an upset, like we said. Nobody that should have won didn't win, but Finch, you would have thought he would have blown out the Roughnecks. He wins by only 11. He was hurt by a really bad game from Peterson, bad game from T.Y. Hilton. Looking at it, bad game, 6 points here, 6 points here. He got 31 from Breeze. Nobody really killed him, just other than Breeze. Nobody performed really well. The Roughnecks, they were held. They kept in this due to Russell Wilson scoring 42 points. They almost pulled off the upset. If they had, Finch still would have been the number 1 seed, but at least would have given Baldwin something to talk about.
Yeah.
Finally, Bruges knocked off his rival Cobb by 55 points. He's looking good heading into the playoffs. And when he was putting up 176 on Cobb, and it looked like you were going to lose, it sure looked like he was going to get that first round bye and be a slight favorite.
Yeah, definitely he would have. And, just looking at projections now, I probably would not be – well, I know I wouldn't be favored if I had to go up against Lucky Enough.
Yeah, so you looked out there. It's a big difference, man, that first round bye. Even if you've got the best team in oil history and you think there's no way I'm going to lose, anything can happen. It's best just to not play that week. Automatically go into the semifinals.
Yeah.
Another way to put it is you're guaranteed to finish no worse than 4th, but we all know that nobody here is shooting for 4th place. So we're just thinking of it as one more advantage in your search for a title. So
Yeah.
which one of these matchups do you want to talk about first?
Probably the one that I think is going to be the closest, and that's Ammo Dogs and the Dark Narcs.
All right, this is what I call the all caps bowl every year. The Ammo Dogs beat the Dark Narcs pretty soundly earlier this season. Not a lot has changed on their team since then. Just today, Mark Ingram was put on IR, so that certainly hurts the Narcs. But David Johnson last week assumed a starting role with the Cardinals, so that does soften the blow right there. But coming out of the draft, we all said we thought Rodgers had the best team. His record doesn't show it, but he had the most points over the course of the season. And in my playoff preview post, I picked him to win this game. What do you see happening here, and what do you think the key will be?
So going through this yesterday, whenever I was looking at this matchup, I picked the Ammo Dogs to win, and that was before Mark Ingram was out. Because whenever you look at the points that he was projected to have, 18.3, it was close. I think in this one thing that is going to be interesting is how Hopkins performs against New England for Rodgers, and then also how Amari Cooper performs against Denver is something that I'm interested in. And then, of course, Freeman's going up against Carolina. I don't – other than that, nothing really sticks out to me. I think Tyrod Taylor will have a good game against Philadelphia. Jeremy Maclin's going against San Diego. I mean, this is – I can see bits and pieces where Rodgers has a slight advantage with a lot of these matchups.
What I like looking at this matchup is the contrast and how these two built their teams. Rodgers drafted 3 receivers with his first 3 picks, if I recall. One of those was Brandon Cooks, who he traded for Maclin. Either one of those would have been a good pick. They both kind of got out of their funk as soon as they were traded. But you've got Rodgers, who came into the draft thinking he was going to build his team around the best receiving core he could get. I mean, he's got 3 good ones here, great ones, maybe the best receiver core in the league with Hopkins, Maclin, and Antonio Brown. But what really put his team in the position they're in now is the fact that his 2 mid-round running back picks, Chris Ivory and TJ Yeldon, have really been fantastic for where he selected them. And they've complemented that receiving core. And the fact that his quarterback was his 18th round pick.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So
yeah, with Taylor being
a
round pick,
Joe Stafford earlier than Taylor, but he's played.
Can you hear me, Brick?
Can you hear me?
You're cutting out a little bit. So I think Brick is having some technical difficulties. It says we're still live, so I'll keep talking. And do a little bit, let's see how this works. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Anyway, so whenever we look at this, getting Tyrod Taylor at an 18th round pick is pretty dang good, considering how well he's performing. Over on the Dark Narc side, Cam Newton has just been pretty much lights out, outstanding. I believe his worst game was 17, almost 18 points. Other than that, he has been in the 20s and 30s consistently, with 2 weeks in the 40s. So, I mean, you cannot complain whenever you get that kind of production out of a quarterback. Whenever you go over and look at this other matchup that the Narcs have with Mike Evans going against New Orleans, and then you also have Johnson out of Arizona running against Minnesota. I think that right there is going to be a good matchup as well. One one thing to consider in these playoff games is to consider the little things. To me, you know, not only are you going to have to rely on the play from your consistent players, like your quarterback, your receivers, the guys who are your cash cows, but don't take lightly the small contributors like a kicker or a defense, because whenever it comes down late, you know, you might have Philadelphia who, you know, happens to get a pick six against Tyrod Taylor. You never know. So anyway, in this one right here, I'm picking the Ammo Dogs, mainly for selfish reasons, because I like how they match up with me if I make it to the playoffs. Brick, are you back on? I see you. You're frozen.
Me.
It's almost like I'm listening to like RTD2. I wish I knew how to take a screenshot on a Mac so I could screenshot this picture of you where it's frozen, because I would definitely
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. No, not anymore if you're talking.
Yeah, you're cutting out bad too.
Is your wife on the streaming Netflix?
Well, do you just want to? Yeah, give me just a second.
Wouldn't it be freaky if, like, you saw like a ghost come out of the closet or something? One thing that I wish we could see, and I don't know, Brick may be able to see it, is how many people we have listening right now. I think that would be neat to know. Deanna streaming the Netflix. My guess is she's not watching like Desperate Housewives. At least I hope not. So I guess what I was saying while we wait for Brick to come back is in the playoffs, don't underestimate your small contributors like your kickers and your defenses. You know, the small details can mean a win or a loss, and we're all looking for that trophy and jersey at the end of this next 3 weeks. The next matchup is on my side of the bracket, and that matchup is Piles Lucky Enough, going up against Bruce's Sooner Jacks. Lucky Enough coming into the playoffs at an 8-5 record and ranked 6th and Jackie's Sooner Jacks, coming in at 9-4, ranked third, right behind me. My personal pick on this game is for the Sooner Jacks. It's separated by roughly 10 points whenever you look at the projected points. Again, I picked Sooner Jacks mainly for mainly personal reasons, but whenever I look at this matchup, I do see some things that kind of stand out to me. Pyle scored a ton of points last week against his rival Dead Again, beating them by over 83 points. So he definitely had some huge contributors, and he has got some strong wide receivers in Julio Jones and Odell Beckham Jr. He also couples that with Allen Robinson, who has been a pretty steady performer, who scored him over 43 points last week. I mean, Robinson was a huge contributor to the blowout. And then, of course, he also has Andy Dalton starting, and Dalton has been nothing but steady. I believe whenever you go and look at Dalton's stats, he only had maybe 2 weeks out of this whole year where he had underperformed. And looking forward at this schedule, he's got Andy Dalton's obviously going against Pittsburgh this week, and he is going against let me see if I can figure this out. Desktop. I don't know if that worked or not. We'll just take it off of the screen share. Anyway, so I apologize if you can't see the screen that I'm talking about. But we have Andy Dalton. So this game is projected with Pyle winning. But one thing that I pointed out to Brick before Brick had his technical difficulties was the fact that I'm interested to see how Julio Jones performs against Carolina, and also how Allen, his running back, Javarius Allen with Baltimore, performs against a very hot Seattle team. On the other side, looking at the Sooner Jacks, you've got some steady players over there. He's got a pair of the Murray running backs, Murray out of Oakland, and then of course DeMarco Murray, who had a not a bad game, because he just wasn't used by the Philadelphia offense last week. But seeing all of the reports of how he met with owners and talked about how he was